Good evening, dear listeners, and a very warm welcome to you all. Wherever you are tuning in from tonight, maybe cozied up in bed, listening from your favorite quiet corner at home, or perhaps relaxing somewhere peaceful with the world fading away outside, I'm so glad you've joined me here. Take a slow, deep breath. Let your shoulders drop. Maybe pull the covers up a bit higher and feel the day gently slip away. Let the story begin. Belvedere Manor was the perfect stage for tragedy. Elegant Art Deco lines gleamed under crystal chandeliers that tinkled like distant applause. Every guest wore evening silk and practiced smiles, playing their parts in Sir Arthur Belvedere's weekend entertainment. Then Sir Arthur was found dead in his study, a crystal glass of poisoned brandy still warm in his rigid hand, and the body lay arranged with theatrical care upon the polished mahogany chaise, a single prop dagger from the house theatre placed near the note that read, "Forgive me." Police saw suicide, a tired financier ending his own performance. But Hercule Poirot saw a performance. Someone in this theatre of wealth was playing the role of innocent, the role of murderer. The curtain rises. Chapter 1. The stage is set. The grandfather clock in the marble hall struck 11 with deep, resonant chimes that echoed through the corridors of Belvedere Manor. Footsteps clicked sharply across the gleaming parquet floors, while silk evening gowns rustled like whispers in the wings. The air was thick with the scent of hothouse lilies, expensive Worth perfume, and the lingering richness of Cuban cigar smoke from earlier that evening. In the grand drawing room, the cast had already taken their positions. Lady Evelyn Belvedere sat closest to the crackling fire, her velvet wrap drawn tightly around her shoulders against the chill that seeped from the terrace doors. She dabbed repeatedly at her eyes with a crisp linen handkerchief, her shoulders shaking in perfect rhythm with expected grief. Yet the fabric remained strangely dry. Mr. Gilbert Moore, Sir Arthur's business manager, paced near the tall French windows. His rough tweed jacket carried the faint scent of wood smoke from the terrace. Young Captain Felix Lang leaned against the grand piano, his fingers tapping an uneven rhythm on the polished mahogany surface. The distant sound of rain began to drum against the tall windows, sealing the manor like a closed theatre. Miss Rosalind Hart, the beautiful young actress Sir Arthur had generously sponsored, stood by the cold marble mantelpiece. Her kid gloves twisted nervously between her fingers as she stared into the flames. Dr. Edmund Price, the family physician, examined an untouched glass of champagne, watching the bubbles rise lazily in the crystal. Miss Beatrice Hale, the efficient private secretary, sat slightly apart, her face pale and composed under the soft golden light of the chandelier. Hercule Poirot arrived at the precise moment the storm intensified. He stepped from the gleaming black Daimler, adjusted his moustache with careful precision, and surveyed the house as a director might study a newly dressed set. The warm drawing-room air wrapped around him, contrasting with the icy night breeze that slipped through the opening doors. "Mon ami," he said softly to the local inspector who greeted him, "observe how perfectly this scene has been arranged. The fire warmth on one side, the cold terrace draught on the other. Every actor already in place, wearing their chosen masks." His green eyes gleamed with quiet satisfaction as he tilted his egg-shaped head. The inspector explained the apparent suicide, the note, the empty medicine bottle, the prop dagger placed dramatically near the body. Poirot listened carefully, making small, expressive gestures with his hands. Suicide? Mais non. This is murder, staged with great care for the audience. The little details, they refuse to support the official story, even when the actors insist upon it. He moved through the room with order and method, studying each performer, and Lady Evelyn's grief appeared technically flawless, the right pauses, the appropriate trembling of the voice. Yet something was missing. "Watch this performance carefully," Poirot murmured. "Is it truth or theatre? The handkerchief dabs, but where are the tears?" Captain Felix offered a firm handshake and spoke of his uncle's recent financial worries in a voice that was perhaps too steady. Mr. Moore kept glancing toward the closed study door, as though checking whether his next lines would be needed. Miss Rosalind Hart described her deep gratitude to her mentor with beautifully breaking voice, yet her eyes never quite met the gaze of the others. Dr. Price recounted the likely effects of the cyanide with professional detachment, but his fingers trembled slightly as he set down the champagne glass. Miss Hale remained the quietest, or watching the entire room like a prompter who had memorized every cue. Poirot arranged 3 crystal ashtrays on a side table into perfect symmetry. The scent of strong continental coffee drifted in from the adjoining room, mixing with the faint leather smell of the furniture. "You see, but you do not observe the performance," he told the inspector. "This widow plays grief most convincingly, yet her mascara has not run. This nephew speaks of loss, yet his hands remain steady. Truth stumbles, mon ami. Lies flow smooth." The rain grew heavier, pattering against the windows like impatient applause. Inside, the fire crackled warmly, while cold air continued to slip beneath the doors. Crystal chandeliers tinkled softly overhead as someone moved. The entire manor now felt alive with tension, every corner a potential stage for revelation. "Sure, consider the psychology," Poirot continued, smoothing an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve. "What role does each person need to play tonight? The devoted wife? The grateful heir? The loyal employee? If you were hiding guilt, how would you perform innocence?" He drew himself up to his full, though still modest, height and addressed the gathered suspects. "The stage is set. The players have taken their places. Hercule Poirot has arrived to direct this drama toward truth. And remember this: in the theatre of crime, every actor eventually forgets their lines." The household staff moved discreetly, bringing fresh coffee whose rich aroma filled the room. Footsteps echoed again on the parquet. Somewhere in the distance, a door closed softly. The suspects exchanged glances, some fearful, some calculating, beneath their carefully maintained masks. The tension in the room rose like the overture before the first act. Someone would break character soon. Poirot could feel it in the air, thick with perfume, smoke, and unspoken secrets. "You watch with Poirot, non? You see how this one's hands tremble while the voice stays calm? The mask slips. Did you catch it? Too perfect, too rehearsed. Truth does not rehearse. Ask yourself, why does she avoid his eyes when speaking of the dead man? The spotlight of truth is about to shine. On whom will it fall?" The stage was set. The players assembled. Let the drama begin. Chapter 2. Enter the players. Dawn light filtered softly through the heavy velvet curtains of Belvedere Manor, turning the breakfast room into a gentler stage bathed in pale gold. The rich aroma of strong continental coffee mingled with warm croissants and the faint sweetness of hothouse lilies placed on the sideboard. Crystal glasses from last night's champagne still stood half empty, their chill lingering on the polished mahogany table. Hercule Poirot had insisted the entire cast remain at the manor. None dared refuse the small Belgian detective now directing their drama. He chose the sunlit morning room for the formal interviews, each one a carefully staged private scene under his watchful green eyes. Lady Evelyn Belvedere entered first, her silk morning gown rustling softly against the parquet floor. She performed the devoted widow with refined elegance, dabbing at dry eyes with a crisp linen handkerchief. Her voice trembled at exactly the right moments as she described retiring early with her husband, as separate bedrooms as had become their custom. Yet when Poirot gently inquired about the new will, her gloved fingers tightened visibly on the arm of the velvet chair. "Observe this performance, mon ami," Poirot murmured afterward. "The grief is technically perfect. The shoulders shake, the voice breaks, but the handkerchief remains dry. Where are the tears that should accompany true sorrow?" Captain Felix Lang followed, still wearing his rough tweed jacket that carried the scent of night air and wood smoke from an early walk. He played the grateful nephew with boyish charm, speaking warmly of his uncle's generosity, despite his own gambling debts. His alibi, placed him alone on the cold terrace, smoking at the fatal hour. Yet the Cuban cigar ash discovered in the study belonged to Sir Arthur, not the Turkish cigarettes Felix preferred, and a small missed cue. Mr. Gilbert Moore entered next, leather shoes creaking on the polished floor. The business manager performed the role of loyal retainer with helpful eagerness, describing late financial meetings and papers that required Sir Arthur's signature. His eyes, however, kept darting toward the fireplace where a fragment of burned paper had been found. The scent of his sandalwood cologne mixed uneasily with the room's furniture wax. Miss Rosalind Hart's scene was pure theatrical art. The young actress arrived in a simple yet elegant day dress, her kid gloves folded neatly. She wept convincingly for her generous mentor, voice breaking as she recounted how he had sponsored her rise. "He believed in my talent," she said, the sob timed with exquisite precision. Poirot noted the tears arrived a heartbeat too late. Ma and her gaze never quite reached the faces of the others. Dr. Edmund Price played the rational man of science with calm authority. He detailed the swift action of cyanide, describing the symptoms Sir Arthur must have suffered. His hands arranged and rearranged his stethoscope with nervous precision while claiming he had been writing medical notes in his room. The grandfather clock had chimed the fatal hour during his supposed solitude. Miss Beatrice Hale, the private secretary, offered the performance of quiet efficiency. Her crisp linen blouse and smooth kid gloves spoke of professionalism. She described taking dictation until 9, then retiring with a headache. Her alibi was neat and orderly, almost too perfectly copied. Yet her eyes followed Mr. Moore with careful attention whenever he spoke. Poirot moved between these scenes with order and method. He tilted his egg-shaped head, smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve, and made small expressive gestures with his hands. The warm morning light caught the crystal chandelier, sending soft tinkling reflections across the walls. Outside, rain continued to fall steadily on the terrace. "Each of you has presented Poirot with a performance," he announced when all had been heard, adjusting his magnificent moustache with precision. "Some are convincing, others show the strain of rehearsal. But truth, mes amis, does not need rehearsal. Lies flow smoothly, only until the first forgotten line. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? Too perfect, too rehearsed. Truth stumbles. Lies flow smooth. You watch with Poirot. Non? You see how the widow's hands tighten when the will is mentioned. Consider the psychology. What role does this person need to play tonight? The mask slips. Did you catch it in the young actress's perfectly timed tears? Ask yourself, why does the secretary's gaze follow the business manager so closely? The tension rises. Someone will break character soon. The morning room grew warmer as fresh coffee was brought in, its rich bitter taste cutting through the lingering champagne sweetness. Footsteps echoed again in the hall. A door closed softly somewhere upstairs. The suspects sat together now in uneasy silence, their masks still firmly in place, but beginning to feel the weight of scrutiny. Poirot arranged the coffee cups into perfect symmetry on the tray. His green eyes gleamed with satisfaction. The players have entered the stage. Each has spoken their lines, yet contradictions appear like missed cues in a poorly rehearsed play. Every actor had taken their mark, but who played truth? Chapter 3. The First Act. By midday, Belvedere Manor's private theatre room became the centre of deeper investigation. Heavy velvet curtains framed the small stage where Sir Arthur had once rehearsed his guests in amateur plays. The air carried the faint scent of stage powder, furniture wax, and lingering hothouse lilies, while cold light from tall windows mixed with the warm glow of wall sconces. Poirot walked the stage slowly, his polished shoes tapping on the wooden boards. The prop dagger had been returned to its glass case, yet its brief absence during the fatal hour now spoke volumes. He summoned the suspects one by one, turning each interview into a spotlighted scene. Miss Rosalind Hart was called first. She entered in a simple silk day dress that still moved like costume, her kid gloves clutched tightly. When Poirot produced a passionate love letter found hidden in Sir Arthur's desk, written in her own elegant hand, she admitted the affair. Her voice cracked beautifully at first. Then Poirot revealed a second letter, dated the night of the murder, in which she demanded money to keep silent. Her performance held for a moment longer. Then the mask slipped completely. The perfectly timed tears arrived too late, and genuine panic flooded her eyes. She rose halfway, silk rustling, before collapsing back into the chair with raw, shaking sobs that no rehearsal could have produced. Poirot turned to the inspector beside him and applied his director method. The performance. She weeps, yes. The shoulders shake appropriately. The voice breaks at the perfect dramatic moments. The tell. But observe. The first tears came only after I mentioned the second letter. The mascara runs now, but earlier it remained perfect. Too perfect. The psychology. I'm reminded of the Ackroyd affair, where a man performed shock so convincingly that even I, Hercule Poirot, was momentarily deceived. He had rehearsed in mirrors, practiced the widening of eyes, the dropping of the jaw. But he made one error. He reached for his cigarette case too steadily. A man truly shocked does not have steady hands. The body, it knows the truth even when the face lies. This is what the little grey cells understand. The psychology beneath the performance. The truth. Therefore, this young actress knew far more than she first claimed. Her love was costume, and not feeling. The mask has slipped. You see it now, non? The theatre begins to crumble. The reflection on human masks settled over the room like a quiet intermission. Humans wear masks because naked truth is dangerous. Society assigns roles: devoted wife, grateful protégé, loyal friend, and we step into them to survive. Lady Evelyn performed perfect widowhood while her heart had already drifted. Captain Felix played the charming nephew while his debts threatened ruin. Mr. Moore showed helpful loyalty while hiding stolen money. Each mask protects a secret self the world would judge or destroy. Yet masks are heavy. They require constant energy to hold in place. A single unexpected question, a hidden letter, and the performance cracks. We lie to protect pride, greed, fear, or love. But the body betrays us. Dry eyes during grief. Unsteady hands during shock. Glances that linger where they should not. In the theatre of life, we are all actors. Some perform better than others, but none perform forever. In this case, the first mask had cracked under Poirot's spotlight. Rosalind's obsession with Sir Arthur had turned to fear and then to calculation. The others watched her breakdown in frozen silence, their own masks suddenly feeling tighter. The scent of strong coffee drifted in from the hallway, mixing with the nervous sweat now visible on several foreheads. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? The mask slips. Did you catch it? You watch with Poirot, non? You see how the tears changed from art to anguish. Consider the psychology. What role did she need to play? If you were hiding guilt, how would you perform innocence? The tension rises. Here more masks will crack soon. The spotlight of truth is about to shine brighter. The grandfather clock chimed in the distance. Footsteps echoed softly on the parquet outside. A door closed with a gentle click. The velvet curtains swayed slightly in a draught, as if the stage itself was breathing. Chapter 4. Rehearsed lines. The afternoon light in Belvedere Manor grew colder as Poirot began tightening the script. He summoned the remaining suspects back to the private theatre room one by one, where the velvet curtains hung heavy and still. The air carried the mingled scents of strong continental coffee, lingering cigar smoke, and the faint bitterness of fear breaking through expensive Worth perfume. Lady Evelyn was called first. Her silk gown rustled as she sat under the low chandelier light. The Poirot pressed her on the new will that drastically reduced her inheritance. At first, her performance of shocked widow held firm, shoulders trembling, voice breaking at the perfect moments. But when he mentioned the burned papers in the study fireplace, her gloved hands clenched so tightly the kid leather creaked. The dry handkerchief appeared again, dabbing at eyes that still refused to weep. Rehearsed lines, mon ami, Poirot observed quietly. She plays outrage beautifully, yet the body betrays her. See how quickly she reaches for the handkerchief before any real tears form. Captain Felix Lang followed, rough tweed jacket still carrying the scent of terrace wood smoke. He repeated his terrace alibi with growing confidence until Poirot placed the Cuban cigar ash beside fresh snow samples taken that morning, and no footprints matched Felix's shoes. His steady voice faltered. The performance of the loyal nephew began to strain, his fingers drumming nervously on the polished arm of the chair. Mr. Gilbert Moore entered next, leather shoes squeaking on the wooden stage floor. He performed helpful cooperation, offering more financial records. But when Poirot revealed forged signatures on 3 large transfers, Moore's face paled beneath the chandelier's glow. His sandalwood cologne suddenly seemed sharper, mixed with the nervous sweat now visible on his forehead. The loyal manager role was cracking. Miss Rosalind Hart was brought back, eyes still red from her earlier breakdown. She tried to replay the grieving protégé, but the mask no longer fit. Her silk dress, once elegant, now clung to her trembling frame. Each question about the cyanide she had obtained from Dr. Price made her voice rise in pitch. The rehearsed sobs returned, yet they sounded hollow, even to her own ears. Dr. Edmund Price performed the professional physician with cold precision at first. He explained medical notes and claimed solitude in his room. Poirot placed the incorrectly dated entry before him. The doctor's hands, usually steady, rearranged his stethoscope 3 times in quick succession. The rational man of science was forgetting his lines. Miss Beatrice Hale offered the most composed performance, crisp linen and quiet efficiency. Yet when Poirot revealed she had typed the blackmail note for Rosalind, her gaze flicked involuntarily toward Mr. Moore. The efficient secretary role began to slip, revealing something deeper and more personal. Poirot moved between them like a director giving notes during a difficult rehearsal. He adjusted his moustache with precision, tilted his egg-shaped head, and made small expressive gestures with his hands. The fire in the room crackled warmly against the chill seeping from the terrace doors. Crystal glasses on the side table tinkled softly as tension vibrated through the air. "Every alibi is a script," he announced to the gathered cast. "And these scripts, they are beginning to fail. Too many missed cues, too many lines that do not match the evidence. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? Too perfect, too rehearsed. Truth stumbles, lies flow smooth. You watch with Poirot, no? You see how the captain's steady hands suddenly tremble. Consider the psychology. What role does this person need to play to survive? Like the mask slips. Did you catch it when the doctor rearranged his instruments again and again? Ask yourself, why does the secretary keep looking at the business manager? The tension rises. Someone will break character very soon. The grandfather clock chimed 3 in the distance. Footsteps echoed anxiously in the hallway. A door closed softly upstairs. The velvet curtains swayed once in a draught, as though the stage itself sensed the coming collapse. Rehearsed lines began to falter. The script was failing. Chapter 5. The mask slips. Dusk had fallen over Belvedere Manor, turning the private theatre room into a dramatic stage lit by low crystal chandeliers. Heavy velvet curtains framed the scene, while the scent of burning wood smoke from the fireplace mixed with expensive Worth perfume and the sharp edge of fear, and all 6 suspects sat in the front row like an unwilling audience, their faces pale under the golden glow. Hercule Poirot stood centre stage, small but commanding. He had arranged the prop dagger, the burned letter fragments, and the forged documents on a polished mahogany table. The air felt colder now, the warm firelight battling the chill draught from the terrace doors. Crystal glasses on the side table tinkled softly as tension vibrated through the room. Miss Rosalind Hart was called forward. Her silk evening gown, once elegant, now clung to her trembling frame. She tried one final performance of the innocent protégé, voice soft and eyes wide with rehearsed vulnerability. Poirot placed the third letter before her, the one written on the night of the murder, demanding money and threatening exposure. For a moment, her mask held, and then it shattered completely. She rose suddenly, silk rustling wildly. A raw, broken sob tore from her throat, no longer timed, no longer beautiful. Real tears streamed down her face, cutting black trails through her mascara. Her hands shook violently as she clutched the letter, crumpling it between her kid gloves. The calculated actress vanished. Only a terrified, obsessed woman remained. The performance of the grieving protégé was magnifique, Poirot said quietly, his green eyes gleaming. But beneath it lay obsession that turned to hate. Sir Arthur discovered your plan to leave him for London. He threatened to destroy your career. So you performed love while preparing death. Rosalind's breakdown was complete and merciless. Her shoulders heaved with genuine ugly sobs. No handkerchief appeared. No graceful dabbing. She collapsed back into the chair, body shaking as the weight of truth crushed her rehearsed persona. The scent of her perfume now mixed with the salt of real tears and the faint bitterness of fear sweat. Poirot applied his director method with calm precision. The performance. She played innocence and grief with such skill. The trembling lip, the breaking voice, the perfectly timed tears. The tell. Yet when the final letter appeared, her hands reached for the prop dagger before anyone mentioned it had been moved. Only the murderer would know its exact place. The psychology. People wear masks to hide what they cannot bear the world to see. Love becomes obsession. Obsession becomes fear. Fear becomes murder. We perform the role society expects until the little grey cells strip away the costume. The truth. Beneath this beautiful mask was a woman capable of poison and staging. You see it now, no? The theatre of lies has collapsed. The other suspects sat frozen in their seats. Lady Evelyn's gloved hands twisted together. Captain Felix stared at the floor. Mr. Moore's face had gone deathly pale. The warm fire crackled louder in the sudden silence while cold night air pressed against the windows. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? The mask slips. Did you catch the exact moment it fell completely? You watch with Poirot, no? You see how the elegant actress has become a broken woman. Consider the psychology. What role did she need to play until the end? If you were hiding guilt, how long could you perform innocence? Now the tension has reached its peak. The final act draws near. The spotlight of truth is burning brightly now. Poirot made an expressive gesture with his small hands and adjusted his magnificent moustache with precision. He drew himself up to his full height, green eyes sweeping across the cast. The grandfather clock chimed in the distance. Footsteps of a servant echoed nervously in the hallway outside. A door closed softly somewhere upstairs. Rosalind's raw sobbing gradually quieted into exhausted silence. Her true face, frightened, exhausted, and no longer hidden, was exposed for all to see. The elegant actress who had captivated Sir Arthur now sat revealed as the woman who had ended his life. Chapter 6. Behind the curtain night had fully claimed Belvedere Manor. The private theatre room glowed under low crystal chandeliers, but their soft tinkling mixing with the steady crackle of the fireplace. Heavy velvet curtains hung motionless, while the scent of wood smoke, strong continental coffee, and fading Worth perfume filled the air. The temperature had dropped, sending cold drafts across the polished parquet floor. With Rosalind Hart's mask shattered, the backstage truths began pouring out like props spilling from an open trapdoor. Poirot moved among the remaining cast, directing the revelations with quiet precision. Lady Evelyn admitted she had known of her husband's affair for months and had planned to divorce him the moment the new will was safely destroyed. Her silk gown rustled as she spoke, hands twisting a damp linen handkerchief that now carried real tears. But Captain Felix Lang confessed his massive gambling debts and the desperate plea he had made to Sir Arthur on the terrace that very night. His rough tweed jacket smelled of cold night air and fear. Mr. Gilbert Moore broke next, revealing years of small embezzlements that had grown larger under pressure. The burned papers in the study fireplace were his forged transfers. Dr. Edmund Price admitted supplying the cyanide, claiming at first it was for pest control. His hands trembled as he rearranged his stethoscope again and again. Miss Beatrice Hale, the quiet secretary, finally spoke of her long-hidden resentment and her secret romantic involvement with Mr. Moore. She had typed Rosalind's blackmail note and helped burn the evidence. The relationships behind the curtain were far uglier than any footlights had suggested. Love had masked obsession, loyalty had hidden resentment, generosity had disguised control. Every elegant performance in the drawing room had concealed a knife of motive. Poirot stood centre stage, smoothing an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve. He tilted his egg-shaped head and addressed the silent cast and the invisible audience. Reflection on hidden motives. Humans do not wear masks only for others. They wear them for themselves. We cannot face our own greed, fear, or hatred in the mirror without costume. Lady Evelyn performed the devoted wife while secretly planning escape. Captain Felix played the charming nephew while his soul drowned in debt. Mr. Moore showed loyal service while stealing from the hand that fed him. Rosalind acted the grateful protégée while plotting murder. Why do we hide our true motives so carefully? Because society demands beautiful performances. A wife must appear grieving. A nephew must seem grateful. A secretary must look loyal. To drop the mask is to risk ruin, judgment, or loneliness. So we rehearse our lines in private, polish our gestures, and step onto the stage of daily life, hoping no one notices the cracks. Yet hidden motives always leave traces. A glance held too long. A hand that trembles at the wrong moment. A scent of fear beneath expensive cologne. The body cannot lie as smoothly as the voice. Guilt sits heavy in the stomach. Relief makes the eyes too bright. Hate sharpens the tongue even when the words are sweet. In every crime, Poirot has seen this truth. The real drama happens backstage. The public performance is for the audience. The private one, the one of secret meetings, whispered threats, and burning letters, reveals the true actors. We kill not because we are evil, but because our hidden motives have grown too large for any mask to contain. The theatre teaches us humility. No one performs perfectly forever. Sooner or later, the curtain parts, the spotlight finds us, and we stand exposed, trembling, human, and finally real. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? The mask slips. Did you catch every hidden glance? You watch with Poirot, no? You see how loyalty was only resentment wearing better clothes. Consider the psychology. What secret motive are you performing to hide? If you were hiding guilt, how many masks would you wear? Behind every elegant smile, a darker truth waits. The final act is approaching. Can you see all the strings now? The grandfather clock chimed solemnly in the hall. Footsteps echoed softly as servants moved in the distance. A champagne cork popped somewhere far away, a hollow sound in the tense silence. The fire warmed one side of the room, while cold terrace air pressed against the windows. Behind every curtain, a secret. Behind every secret, a motive. Chapter 7. The Final Act. The grandfather clock struck 9 as the entire cast assembled once more in the grand drawing room of Belvedere Manor. Every crystal chandelier blazed with light, sending sparkles across polished mahogany and velvet curtains. The air was thick with the scent of strong coffee, wood smoke, and the sharp undercurrent of fear breaking through expensive perfume. Cold night air pressed against the tall windows, while the fire crackled warmly on one side of the room, for Hercule Poirot stood at the centre like a master director commanding his stage. He had arranged the suspects in a perfect semicircle: Lady Evelyn, Captain Felix, Mr. Moore, Dr. Price, Miss Hale, and the broken Miss Rosalind Hart. All eyes were fixed on the small Belgian detective as he drew himself up to his full height and adjusted his magnificent moustache with precision. Mesdames et messieurs, Poirot began, his voice clear and theatrical, you have each performed for Poirot. some truthfully, some not. Let us now review the performances, shall we? He turned first to Lady Evelyn, whose silk gown shimmered under the lights. Lady Evelyn, you played the grieving widow with great skill. The trembling shoulders, the dry handkerchief, the perfect timing of sorrow. But the grief was only costume. And you knew of the new will and burned the old one in the study fireplace that night. Lady Evelyn's face crumpled. Her mask of elegant widowhood fell away, revealing cold calculation beneath. Captain Felix, Poirot continued, making an expressive gesture with his small hands. You performed the loyal and grateful nephew. Yet loyal nephews do not lie about smoking Turkish cigarettes when Cuban ash is found beside the body. Your debts were crushing, and your alibi on the terrace was false. Felix stared at the floor, his rough tweed jacket suddenly looking shabby under the bright lights. Mr. Gilbert Moore, you played the faithful business manager with helpful cooperation. Magnifique. But faithful managers do not forge signatures and burn evidence. Your embezzlement was discovered by Sir Arthur. Moore's hands trembled as he gripped the arms of his chair. His sandalwood cologne could no longer hide the scent of fear. Dr. Edmund Price, you performed the rational physician, the man of science. Yet innocent doctors do not supply cyanide under false pretenses and then falsify their notes. The doctor's face turned ashen. His stethoscope lay forgotten in his lap. Miss Beatrice Hale, you gave us the perfect silent and loyal secretary. But silent secretaries do not type blackmail letters or help destroy evidence for their secret lover. Miss Hale looked away, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Poirot paused dramatically, letting the silence build. The crystal chandelier tinkled softly overhead. Footsteps of a servant echoed faintly in the hall. Then he turned to the centre of the stage. And so we come to our leading performer, Miss Rosalind Hart. The young actress sat motionless, her face already stripped of its beauty. Poirot's green eyes gleamed with satisfaction. You gave the most convincing performance of all. The innocent protégée, the grateful actress, the shocked mourner, magnifique. The trembling voice, the perfectly timed tears, the elegant collapse. But you made one fatal error, one small moment when the mask slipped completely. He lifted the prop dagger from the mahogany table. You reached for this dagger before anyone had mentioned it had been moved from the body. Only the murderer who placed it there would have known its exact position. Rosalind's shoulders began to shake with real, ugly sobs. No rehearsal could save her now. You obtained the cyanide from Dr. Price. You wrote the blackmail letters. You poisoned Sir Arthur's brandy while he worked in his study. Then you staged the suicide with the note and the dagger, all to protect your career and escape his control. The room fell into absolute silence except for the crackling fire and Rosalind's broken breathing. Warm firelight danced across cold marble and silk. The scent of lilies now seemed sickly sweet. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? The mask slips. Did you catch every single crack? You watch with Poirot, no? You see how the great actress has finally forgotten all her lines. Too perfect, too rehearsed. Truth does not rehearse. Consider the psychology. What role did each of them need to play? The spotlight of truth has fallen at last. On whom did it fall? The final act is here. The curtain is falling. Poirot made one last expressive gesture, his small hands sweeping across the entire cast. The performance is over. The masks have been removed. The theatre of crime has revealed its true face. Miss Rosalind Hart, you are under arrest for the murder of Sir Arthur Belvedere. The final act concluded. Only truth survived the curtain call. Chapter 8. Curtain Call. The grandfather clock struck midnight in the marble hall of Belvedere Manor, its deep chimes echoing like the final notes of a tragedy. Crystal chandeliers still blazed overhead, casting long shadows across the polished parquet floor and heavy velvet curtains. The drawing room, once warm with firelight and the scent of strong continental coffee, now felt colder. the night air seeping through the tall windows carrying the faint chill of justice. Police officers moved quietly through the house, their footsteps crisp on the wooden floors. Miss Rosalind Hart was led away in handcuffs, her silk evening gown now crumpled and stained with tears. No elegant performance remained. Her face was bare, mascara running in ugly black streaks, shoulders slumped in genuine defeat. The brilliant young actress who had captivated Sir Arthur now walked as a broken woman. The mask of innocence stripped away forever. Lady Evelyn Belvedere sat near the fireplace, her velvet wrap drawn tightly around her. For the first time that weekend, her tears were real. Slow, silent drops that soaked the crisp linen handkerchief she clutched. The performance of grief had ended. What remained was raw relief mixed with regret. She would sell the manor and leave this stage of lies behind. The new will had been her secret hope, but murder had poisoned everything. Captain Felix Lang stood by the grand piano, fingers no longer drumming. His rough tweed jacket smelled of wood smoke and nervous sweat. The charming nephew role had collapsed completely. His gambling debts were now public, his false alibi exposed. He stared at the floor, face pale under the chandelier light, already planning a quiet exit to a distant posting abroad. The mask of gratitude had hidden desperation. Now, only shame remained. Mr. Gilbert Moore sat slumped in an armchair, his leather shoes scuffed from pacing. The loyal business manager had aged years in hours. Forgery charges awaited him, though cooperation might bring some mercy. His sandalwood cologne could no longer mask the bitterness of exposure. The helpful mask had hidden theft. Beneath it lay a frightened man who had betrayed the hand that fed him. Dr. Edmund Price leaned against the cold marble mantelpiece, his stethoscope forgotten in his pocket. The rational physician had lost his professional detachment. Supplying poison and falsifying notes would cost him his practice. His hands, once steady with instruments, now trembled openly. The mask of science had hidden complicity. Truth had left him stripped and trembling. Miss Beatrice Hale sat apart, crisp linen blouse now wrinkled. Her quiet efficiency had been a cover for resentment and secret love. Typing the blackmail note and burning evidence had tied her to the crime. She would face charges, but perhaps lighter ones for her honesty at the end. The loyal secretary role had hidden deeper motives. Now she faced an uncertain future without the shelter of silence. Poirot stood near the centre of the room, with small hands making a final expressive gesture. He smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve and adjusted his magnificent moustache with precision. His green eyes surveyed the cast with quiet satisfaction. The theatre he had directed had reached its curtain call. No applause filled the air, only the soft rustle of silk, the crackle of the dying fire, and the distant sound of a door closing as Rosalind was taken away. The inspector approached Poirot. "It is finished, Monsieur Poirot. Justice begins tonight." "Mais oui," Poirot replied softly. "The performance is over. The actors have left the stage. What remains is truth, bare, cold, and necessary. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? The masks have fallen. Did you see every face revealed? You watch with Poirot, no? You see how relief mixes with regret in the widow's eyes? Too perfect no longer. The rehearsed lines have ended. Consider the psychology. What happens when the curtain falls and the role is gone? The spotlight has dimmed. Only justice remains under these lights. The tension has broken. The drama has concluded. The servants moved discreetly, clearing untouched champagne glasses, whose crystal still tinkled faintly. The scent of hothouse lilies now seemed overly sweet against the chill night air. Footsteps echoed one last time on the parquet as the police completed their work. A final door closed softly in the distance. No one clapped. No bows were taken. The elegant Art Deco drawing room, once the perfect stage for weekend entertainment, now stood as a quiet witness to the end of lies. Lady Evelyn rose slowly, her silk gown whispering against the floor. Captain Felix straightened his jacket with shaking hands. Mr. Moore and Dr. Price exchanged a brief, hollow glance. Miss Hale looked toward the empty stage of the private theatre one last time. The cast had been stripped of every role. Greed, fear, love, and hate had all performed their parts. Now only ordinary, flawed humans remained, exposed, vulnerable, and free from the weight of their masks at last. No applause for this performance. Only justice. Chapter 9. After the show weeks had passed since the final curtain fell at Belvedere Manor, the grand Art Deco house stood quieter now, its crystal chandeliers covered in dust sheets, the heavy velvet curtains drawn against the pale spring light. The scent of hothouse lilies had faded, were replaced by the faint mustiness of closed rooms and the lingering trace of furniture wax. Only a few servants remained to prepare the property for sale. Lady Evelyn Belvedere had already left for a small cottage by the sea. She no longer wore the elegant silk gowns or the mask of the devoted widow. Instead, she walked the cold shingle beach in simple tweed, breathing the salty air and slowly learning to live without the weight of performance. The relief she felt was genuine, though tinged with sorrow for the life she had once rehearsed so carefully. The new will had been destroyed, but justice had taken its place. She wrote occasional letters to Poirot, short notes of quiet gratitude mixed with reflection. Captain Felix Lang had taken a commission abroad, sailing for a posting in the Far East. His rough tweed jackets and gambling debts were left behind on English soil. The charming nephew mask had been torn away that night in the drawing room. What remained was a young man determined to rebuild without lies. The cold terrace where he had once claimed an alibi now felt like a distant memory. He sent Poirot a single telegram. "Thank you for ending the performance before it destroyed me." Mr. Gilbert Moore faced charges in London but received leniency for his full cooperation. He sold his fine leather shoes and expensive cologne, moving into modest rooms where the scent of strong coffee replaced the luxury of Cuban cigars. The loyal business manager role had hidden years of quiet theft. Now he worked as a junior clerk, learning the value of honest lines. His face had aged, but his eyes carried a new steadiness, the kind that comes when masks are no longer needed. Dr. Edmund Price had lost his medical practice. The rational physician who once rearranged his stethoscope with nervous precision now lived quietly in a small village, offering basic care to those who would accept him. The mask of science had concealed his complicity. Truth had left him humbled. He no longer spoke of symptoms with detached authority. Instead, he listened more and performed less. The cyanide he had supplied haunted his quiet evenings, but the fire in his modest hearth brought simple warmth without pretense. Miss Beatrice Hale had found honest work as a secretary in a London office. Her crisp linen blouses and smooth kid gloves remained, but the silence she once wore like armour had softened. The resentment she had hidden behind loyalty to Mr. Moore had been exposed that night. She visited him occasionally in his modest rooms, their shared secret now a bridge rather than a chain. The efficient secretary role had ended. A more authentic woman was slowly emerging. The manor itself had transformed. The private theatre room stood empty, its velvet curtains folded away. The polished mahogany table where Poirot had laid out evidence now held only a single vase of fresh lilies, a final, simple gesture from the remaining staff. The grand drawing room, once filled with the rustle of silk and the tinkling of crystal, echoed with quiet footsteps as appraisers moved through. The stage that had hosted weekend entertainments and a real murder had returned to stillness. Poirot had left Belvedere weeks earlier, yet the lessons of that weekend lingered in every corner. The elegant Art Deco setting, once the perfect backdrop for lies, now felt peaceful. The cold terrace where alibis had been tested, the warm fire where masks had cracked, the cold marble mantel where truths had emerged, all bore silent witness to the drama's end. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? The masks have been removed. Did you see the real faces beneath? You watch with Poirot, non. You see how each life has changed after the curtain. Too perfect no longer. The rehearsed roles have ended. Consider the psychology. What happens when the spotlight fades and ordinary life returns? The theatre has emptied, but the lessons remain strong. The final transformation is complete. Justice has taken its bow. The servants closed the tall windows against the spring rain that now pattered softly on the glass. A door closed gently in the distance. The grandfather clock, still keeping perfect time, chimed the hour with calm resonance. The scent of fresh coffee drifted from the kitchen one last time as the house prepared for new owners. 5 lives had been forever altered by the events of that fatal weekend. Rosalind Hart awaited trial. Her brilliant acting career ended before it truly began. The others, stripped of their performances, were learning to walk without masks. Some would stumble, some would grow. All carried the memory of Poirot's spotlight and the night when every suspect had been lying. The elegant country house, once a glittering stage for wealth and deception, now stood ready for its next chapter. Quieter, humbler, and free from the weight of rehearsed lines. The theatre emptied. The lessons remained. Chapter 10. Poirot reviews the performance. Hercule Poirot sat comfortably in his London apartment, the late afternoon light filtering softly through the lace curtains. A steaming cup of tisane rested on the small table beside him, its delicate herbal scent mingling with the rich aroma of strong continental coffee he had enjoyed earlier. The room was warm, the fire crackling gently in the grate, casting a golden glow over polished mahogany and velvet upholstery. Outside, the distant sounds of the city faded into a peaceful hush, broken only by the soft ticking of a grandfather clock and the occasional rustle of pages as he reviewed his notes. The newspapers had carried the full story of the Belvedere Manor case. Miss Rosalind Hart had been convicted and sentenced. Lady Evelyn now lived quietly by the sea. Captain Felix had found discipline abroad. Mr. Moore worked honestly as a clerk. Dr. Price offered simple care in a village. Miss Hale had begun a new, more authentic life in London. The grand Art Deco manor itself stood sold, its private theatre silent at last. Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve and adjusted his magnificent moustache with precision. He tilted his egg-shaped head, green eyes gleaming with quiet satisfaction as he reflected on the human drama he had directed. Why do people perform rather than reveal the truth? Because the mask feels safer than the bare face. Society writes the roles we must play: the devoted wife, the grateful nephew, the loyal manager, the brilliant protégé. We step into these costumes because naked honesty invites ruin, judgment, or loneliness. Greed dresses itself as grief. Fear performs as confidence. Love masks itself as indifference. Hate hides behind loyalty. We rehearse our lines in private mirrors, polish our gestures, and hope the audience never notices the cracks. In the Belvedere case, every suspect wore a carefully chosen mask. Lady Evelyn performed perfect widowhood while secretly rejoicing at the thought of freedom. Captain Felix played the charming heir while his debts threatened to swallow him. Mr. Moore showed helpful loyalty while stealing quietly from his employer. Dr. Price wore the detached man of science while supplying the means of death. Miss Hale offered silent efficiency while hiding resentment and secret passion. And Rosalind Hart gave the most magnificent performance of all, the innocent, grateful actress, until the final letter tore her mask away. The psychology of deception is always the same. We lie not because we are evil, but because the role society demands is too heavy for our true selves. The body, however, cannot sustain the performance forever. It betrays us in small, honest ways. The dry handkerchief during rehearsed grief, the steady hand when shock should tremble, the glance that lingers where it should not. Guilt sits heavy in the stomach and makes the voice just slightly too smooth. Relief makes the eyes too bright. Fear sharpens every movement until the actor forgets the next line. I am reminded of the case aboard the Orient Express, where every passenger wore a mask of respectability, while one hid murder beneath layers of performance. Each told a perfect story. Each alibi was neatly rehearsed, yet the little grey cells found the single thread that unravelled the entire tapestry. In that confined theatre on rails, as here at Belvedere Manor, Truth eventually triumphed because performance requires constant energy. Lies must be maintained, defended, remembered. Truth needs only to exist. The actor grows tired. The mask slips. The spotlight finds the real face beneath. The psychology of revelation is both cruel and merciful. When the curtain falls and the masks are removed, people often feel relief even as they face justice. The weight of pretending lifts. They stand exposed, trembling, human, and finally real. Some, like Lady Evelyn and Miss Hale, begin to build quieter, more honest lives. Others, like Rosalind, must pay the full price for their performance. But all leave the theatre changed. They learn that no role can be sustained forever. We are all actors on the stage of life. Society forces us into costumes we did not choose. Pride demands we play the part perfectly. Fear whispers that dropping the mask will bring disaster. Yet the theatre of crime teaches this universal truth. The truth always emerges eventually. It may take time. It may require a director like Hercule Poirot to shine the spotlight, but it cannot be hidden indefinitely. The body knows. The little details speak. The performance crumbles when order and method are applied. Consider your own life, mon ami. What mask do you wear each day? Do you perform confidence when fear gnaws inside? Do you play loyalty while resentment grows? If you were hiding guilt, how would you rehearse innocence? Ask yourself these questions. Become the careful observer. Notice the dry eyes, the too steady hands, the glances that avoid the truth. The psychology, it is everything. In the end, truth triumphs over performance because truth is simple. It does not need rehearsal. It does not require applause. It simply is. The actors may bow, the curtains may fall, but only truth remains standing in the empty theatre. Poirot sipped his tisane, the warm liquid comforting against the chill of evening. He arranged the papers on the table into perfect symmetry and made a small expressive gesture with his hands. The fire warmed the room while cold night air pressed gently against the windows, and the scent of leather-bound books and fresh flowers lingered pleasantly. The Belvedere Manor drama had been one more performance in the long theatre of crime. 5 lives transformed, 1 justice served. Lessons learned about the masks we all wear and the moments when they inevitably slip. Until the next theatre of crime, mes amis, Poirot watches always.